Amazing Puppy's Heartwarming Journey. Discover how he fought for his mother's life-changing meds. Charlie was just a little ball of fur when he found himself alone in the cold, sterile shelter. Scrappy and small, he had a sparkle in his big brown eyes that never dulled. Abandoned but not defeated. Each wag of his tail echoed hope, and with every bark he seemed to shout to the world, "I'm still here." Days turned into nights and Charlie watched as people passed by. Some glanced, some cooed, while others turned away. But he never lost faith. In a small Midwestern town, the air was crisp, and the leaves danced around in a colorful display. That's when Sarah appeared, exhausted but determined. Juggling 2 jobs and caring for her ailing mother, Linda, she had nearly lost hope of finding companionship. But the moment she saw Charlie, something inside her ignited. It was his spirit, his unwavering joy, that wrapped around her heart like a warm blanket. With tears of relief in her eyes, she scooped him up and whispered, "You're coming home with me." At first, Charlie filled their home with laughter, bounding around as Linda, weak but smiling, petted him softly. Those moments felt like light in the shadows of their lives. But soon, that light flickered when Sarah received the news that Linda needed expensive medication meds they couldn't afford. Bills piled high like mountains, and the weight of despair hung in the air like thick fog. Sarah's heart sank. How could she possibly manage it all? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Charlie sensed the storm brewing inside Sarah. He could feel the tightness in her chest and see the tears pooling in her eyes. It was in the stillness of night, under the watchful glow of stars, that Charlie made a decision. He snuck out of the house, his little paws barely making a sound on the pavement. He dashed through the neighborhood, finding a group of children playing. With a playful bark, he gathered them around, igniting their imaginations. "Let us help Sarah," he seemed to say. Soon, lemonade stands popped up like wildflowers, and yard sales sprang forth with laughter and collaboration. Neighbors, inspired by this little puppy's heart, came together with love and determination. Adults rekindled connections, and a sense of community grew stronger. But as their efforts blossomed, Charlie sensed Sarah's heart still weighed heavily with doubt. Then one day, a local business owner moved by Charlie's endearing quest came forth with a generous donation. As whispers of hope swept through the community, Sarah began to see the glimmers of possibility. Still, another layer of fear gnawed at her. Would this be enough to secure her mother's life-saving meds? With every sip of lemonade and every cheer from the kids, she felt torn between hope and despair. As Charlie looked up at her, he could feel the tension, the pull of desperation mixed with hope. The love surrounding them was palpable, yet the looming question hung in the air. Could love and community truly conquer the darkness circling above? As they faced their greatest challenges, the spirit of Charlie and the determination of Sarah shone bright against the shadows. What would it take for them to break free from despair? And could their small town truly rally around the fight for family? As days passed, the whispers of hope slowly turned into a chorus. Charlie became the neighborhood hero. He played fetch with the children, and everywhere he went, people found joy in his antics. Yet, beneath his playful exterior, he knew the weight of responsibility resting on his tiny shoulders. One afternoon, a flyer fluttered into Sarah's hands as she worked outside. "Community fundraising fair, join us," it boldly declared. The date was set for the following Saturday, promising food, games, and entertainment. Above all, it showcased a community coming together for a single purpose: to raise money for families in need, including hers. As Sarah read the flyer, her heart raced. This could be their chance. With renewed determination, she gathered the neighborhood to brainstorm. Charlie panted happily, bouncing among them, sensing their excitement. "Can we organize a dog show?" a kid called out, bursting with enthusiasm. "Charlie would win for sure," laughed another. With the fundraising fair fast approaching, Sarah poured herself into the preparations. She sought out donations from local businesses and rallied volunteers, including families who had once been strangers, now bonded by a common goal. The day became a whirlwind of activity, laughter, and shared purpose as the fair day dawned. Charlie sensed the energy crackling in the air. Colorful banners waved in the breeze, and laughter echoed through the park. Stalls were set up with homemade crafts, scrumptious treats, and a mini petting zoo. The entire town had turned out, and the sight filled Sarah with pride. When the dog show began, Charlie strut with his tail high, charm overflowing. Children cheered, and for a moment all worries melted away. There were silly tricks, dancing pups, and even a costume competition. Sarah smiled as she watched Charlie basking in the spotlight. Just then she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Kim, the local bakery owner, holding a box of treats. For Charlie. We all love him, dear, she said with a warm smile. As the competition wrapped up and volunteers gathered for announcements, the crowd's anticipation thickened. Sarah's heart thudded against her chest. Through all the joy, the shadow of fear still hovered above. How much could they raise today? Could it be enough to cover Linda's medication? When the time came to unveil the total amount raised, the crowd grew silent. With bated breath, the organizer took the microphone, his voice booming across the park. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks to your generosity and support, we have raised. He paused dramatically, allowing the weight of expectation to settle. $5,000. Gasps and cheers erupted, and Sarah felt a rush of relief. But as cheers surrounded her, another wave of anxiety swept in. Was that truly enough? Charlie, sensing her tension, bounded over, nuzzling her leg. Her heart warmed. At that moment, Sarah understood no matter the outcome, they had created something beautiful. Community, hope, and love had intertwined to produce this incredible moment. Yet, just as she began to imagine that perhaps it could all work out, a voice interrupted her thoughts. The town doctor approached, concern etched on his face. Sarah, we need to talk. The magic of the fair faded as Sarah braced herself, the weight of uncertainty pressing down once more. What was it that the doctor needed to say? Would hope slip through her fingers again? Or could this be the turning point they all desperately needed? The crowd's cheers became a distant hum as Sarah focused on the doctor's serious expression. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath her feet. What is it? Her voice trembled, heart racing. The doctor glanced around, making sure no one else could overhear. Can we step aside? He asked, leading her toward a quieter corner of the park. Charlie trotted close behind, sensing the change in mood. His ears perked up as if he understood something was amiss. Once they found a secluded spot behind a row of booths, the doctor took a deep breath. I've been reviewing Linda's case, he started, eyes searching hers. The medication is working well, but the more I look, the more I'm concerned about the long-term effects. Sarah's stomach dropped. Long-term effects? She could barely speak, her mind racing. Is it not safe? Can't we find a better option? It's not that simple, he said, shaking his head gently. I wish it were. But her medical needs are evolving, and frankly, she might need a different treatment plan soon. The funds raised today won't last long enough. The weight of his words pressed on her chest like a stone. But we did all this and the community came together. We need this to last. Sarah couldn't keep the desperation out of her voice. Maybe we can do more? Hope is important, Sarah. But we need a plan, something sustainable, he replied, his tone a mix of compassion and urgency. Have you thought about crowdfunding? Or reaching out to organizations that specialize in cases like Linda's? There might be avenues we haven't explored yet. Just then, Charlie wagged his tail as if offering support. She knelt down, hugging him tightly. His warmth was a balm against her simmering anxiety. I'll try, she whispered into his fur, battling the fear threatening to consume her. The doctor placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. You're not alone in this. The whole community is behind you, and I'll help however I can. But we need to act quickly. Every day counts. As they walked back to the fairgrounds, Sarah felt a mix of gratitude and dread. The fair had been a success, but it all rested on such shaky ground. Parents smiled and laughed with their kids, but all she could think of was Linda's future and how uncertain it had become. She stopped and looked out at the bustling scene, the food stalls, the laughter, Charlie playing with the children under the bright sun. Was it too much to hope for a miracle? Hey you! Cried a voice from the crowd. It was Kim, waving her over excitedly. We're starting the community dance. Come join us. Sarah smiled faintly but didn't move. A dance felt so trivial when the clock was ticking, and they had so much work to do. Sarah. Charlie nuzzled against her leg again, as if to remind her that even in darkness, there was joy to be found. She took a deep breath, recognizing the power of those moments. Okay, I'll dance, she said finally, a flicker of resolve igniting in her heart. But then we get back to work. As they joined the swirling dancers, laughter enveloped her, pulling her from her worries, if only for a moment. She twisted and turned with Charlie, whose boundless energy matched the vibrant spirit around them. But in the back of her mind, uncertainty churned. What would the next weeks hold? How could she secure Linda's future? As the last note of the song faded and people began to disperse, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She would explore every possible avenue for help. Just as she turned to gather her thoughts, a familiar figure approached her with a sweeping grin. It was Mrs. Lawson, the retired teacher from down the street, holding a clipboard. Sarah, she exclaimed, I have an idea I think you'll want to hear about. What could it be? Would this lead to the breakthrough she needed? Mrs. Lawson's eyes sparkled with excitement as she leaned closer. I've been speaking with some folks about forming a community task force, she said, her voice eager and alive. We can brainstorm ways to support Linda and other families like yours. Think about it, what if we could organize bigger events throughout the year? We could reach out to local businesses, get sponsorships. There is so much potential. Sarah felt a rush of hope infusing her. You really think that can work? The notion of a task force seemed daunting but thrilling. We do need a lot of help. Absolutely, Mrs. Lawson nodded, her enthusiasm infectious. People want to help, but they need direction. We can harness that energy. Plus, I've got connections to volunteers who can assist in organizing this. Charlie barked excitedly, as if he understood the idea, and wagged his tail furiously. Sarah knelt, patting his head, feeling a swell of gratitude for the small moments of joy amidst so much uncertainty. Okay, let us do it. Let us rally our community. Great. We can meet tomorrow at my house to discuss ideas. I'll make coffee and snacks, she said, already scribbling down notes on her clipboard. We'll call it the Linda Project, like a community outreach initiative. Linda Project, Sarah repeated, feeling the weight of the name in her heart. It was personal, it felt right. I love it. The thought of bringing people together filled her with purpose. Still, doubts hung heavy in the air. Would it be enough? Could community efforts actually make a difference in Linda's treatment? The weight of those questions pressed down on Sarah as she glanced around the park, the laughter slowly fading into the background as they walked away from the lively fair. She couldn't contain her excitement and whispered, this could be the start of something huge. But a flicker of fear snaked through her mind. What if it all fell apart? What if no one showed up to help? Later, sitting on the edge of her bed, Sarah pulled out her phone and started scrolling through her contacts. Okay, I'll write some emails tonight, she murmured, determination tightening her jaw. Reaching out felt overwhelming, but she had to push through. Every name she scrolled by meant another connection to safety for Linda. Just as she began typing, a message pinged on her phone. It was a notification from a local online group about fundraising. She clicked on it, and one post caught her eye, a woman offering to host a charity auction. Maybe this is what we need, Sarah thought, heart racing. It could draw significant attention and funds at once. Her fingers flew across the screen, typing a hurried inquiry to the organizer around midnight. With the glow of her laptop lighting the dark room, it struck her. The daunting tasks ahead felt monumental, but that's what community was. For every hand joined in a fight, every heart beating for each other. Determined and rooted in hope, she closed her laptop and slid under the covers. A sense of peace settled over her, knowing she was ready to fight for Linda's future. As Sarah drifted into sleep, dreams swirled with visions of gatherings, laughter, and a flourishing support network. Her breath came a little easier now, knowing she had a plan. But the question lingered, would they gain enough momentum before Linda needed her next treatment? The sun rose, casting a hopeful light through her window, but curiosity tugged at her heart. What other challenges awaited her as she rallied her community? And what if, amidst it all, they uncovered a secret that could change everything for Linda? The next morning burst forth with a bright yellow glow, as sunlight streamed through Sarah's window. She stretched her limbs, still wrapped in the comfort of her dreams about community support. But as she sat up, reality came rushing in, bringing the day's tasks sharply into focus. There were emails to send and people to contact. She took a deep breath and made a list. The idea of the Linda project filled her with determination, but also a twinge of anxiety. Would they really be able to make a difference? The thought gnawed at her. Her fingers hovered over her phone as she tapped out the first message. Subject: join me. She started with a few words about the task force and how everyone could help. With each recipient she selected, her spirit rose, but then a twinge of doubt. What if they didn't care? What if they were too busy with their own lives? Just as she debated sending the message, a soft knock came from her door. Sarah, are you awake? It was her dad, peeking in with his usual morning cheer. Yeah, Dad, just figuring some things out. Cool. I made some breakfast if you want to join us. His smile was warm, grounding. She nodded, grateful for the distraction. The smell of pancakes wafted from the kitchen, and as she made her way downstairs, she could already hear the laughter of her younger brother, Jake. Hey, pancake artist. Sarah grinned, as she flopped onto a chair at the kitchen table. Only for you, he chirped, flipping another pancake. His energy was contagious, and for a moment, she let herself forget the weight of her responsibilities. After they served up breakfast, she shared her excitement about the Linda project, while dabbing syrup onto her pancake, the sticky sweetness calming her nerves. It's going to take a lot of support, and I really have no idea what I'm doing, she admitted, her voice wavering. Mom used to say you can't make a big difference without a little chaos, Jake quipped, and they all laughed. But in the back of her mind, Sarah couldn't shake the reality of the chaos she was about to embrace. Once breakfast was done, she cleared the table and returned to her bedroom. She needed to dive into her task. With renewed energy, Sarah sent out her first round of emails. The replies started trickling in almost immediately, some saying they were in, some needing more info, and a few offering to brainstorm ideas. Each ping brought her a sense of relief. Hours turned into a flurry of planning. Her excitement was palpable as she organized notes, kept spreadsheets, and reassured herself that support was indeed around her. Just as she was about to lay out her next steps, the phone rang. It was Mrs. Lawson. Sarah, I've been talking to some local businesses. They love the idea of contributing to the Linda project. Her enthusiasm sparkled over the line, and Sarah felt the heat of happy tears prickling her eyes. We have a local bakery, a gym, and even a hardware store ready to step in. Can you believe it? I can't, Sarah exclaimed, astonished. This is incredible. They want to meet with us next week to discuss how they can help. Excited? You have no idea. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. Plans were coming together, and before she knew it, they were talking about logistics. As they spoke, Sarah's heart lifted, not just for Linda, but for all the families who had been standing alone like ghosts in the shadows. Once the call ended, Sarah's mind buzzed with ideas. The auction, the businesses, they could actually build something lasting with this. Still, a small shadow of doubt crept back. Would it be enough? As she prepared for bed that night, her heart raced. The wind outside howled, but her thoughts were centered. There was a fire brewing within her. She was fighting for more than just Linda, she was rallying a community. But with all this hope, a new question loomed. What if the businesses didn't deliver? What if the community didn't rally like she imagined? The battle wasn't over yet, and anxiety nudged her gently as she drifted off to sleep. What awaited in the coming days? Would they truly transform the support for Linda and the community, or had they bitten off more than they could chew? The following days dragged on, each one painted in nervous anticipation. Sarah woke up with purpose, attacking her to-do list with relentless drive. The meetings with local businesses loomed large on her calendar, the prospect both thrilling and terrifying. Would they bring their resources, or were they just words on a page? It was Saturday morning when Sarah gathered her crew for the first planning session at the local park. The sun was shining, casting a warm glow over the grass and painting the sky splashes of blue. The air felt electric. Each friend she invited brought along their own insights about how to escalate the project. Mark, an old friend from high school, held a wild enthusiasm that was hard not to catch. Imagine if we can get everyone, like really everyone, involved like a giant community barbecue at the auction, he said, bouncing on his heels. That's a brilliant idea. Sarah's heart leaped. It was those moments that ignited her spirit. Food always brings people together. As the group tossed around ideas, the sound of laughter floated on the breeze, mingling with the rustle of leaves. Each suggestion sparked new excitement, new opportunities. They discussed games, art displays, and even a bake-off. With each plan, Sarah felt their momentum building. But as the conversation flowed, a nagging feeling sat in her chest. What if things didn't turn out as they envisioned? The logistics emerged dauntingly, and shadows of doubt flickered in her thoughts. She took a deep breath, pinching her thumb and index finger together, as if to shake the tension away. By the time they wrapped up their brainstorming session, Sarah was filled with both hope and fear. They assigned roles: who would reach out to more businesses, who would take charge of decorations, and who would handle marketing. For Sarah, ending the day meant slipping into bed with that same whirlwind in her heart. That night, she lay wide awake. The wind howled outside again, but this time it felt different. Each gust whispered a challenge. Maybe all the enthusiasm they had couldn't outshine the bigger issues they faced. Was she, armed with nothing but passion and a team of friends, destined to take on a task too enormous? Monday arrived with the dawn breaking over her, and Sarah rolled out of bed, shaking off her doubts. If she was learning anything, it was that action propelled courage forward, no matter the outcome. They met with the bakery owner first. The cozy shop, filled with the mouth-watering aroma of fresh bread and pastries, was alive with warmth. Mrs. Simmons, the owner, listened intently as Sarah pitched her ideas, her brow furrowed slightly in thought. When Sarah finished, there was a long pause. It hung in the air like the scent of cinnamon. "Sarah," Mrs. Simmons finally said, "I can't promise you a lot, but I'll donate some baked goods for your auction." Relief flooded through Sarah, igniting a bright smile as the week unfolded. Other businesses seemed to follow Mrs. Simmons' lead. The gym confirmed numerous fitness class pass donations. The hardware store promised supplies for decorations. With each incoming commitment, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope, but deep inside, she still feared the looming question. What if this couldn't last? With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she couldn't shake a question that hovered in the air. What would happen if they faced real opposition? The idea pulsed in her mind, haunting her. As Sarah tucked her notes into her bag after another satisfying day, a voice broke her trance. "Sarah, can we talk?" It was Mark again, looking serious, discomfort rippling on his face. "There is something you need to know." Her heart sank. What was it this time? Anxiety surged as she met his gaze, poised at the edge of uncertainty. What news could possibly shift the course of what they were building together? Mark shifted his weight nervously from one foot to the other, the air around them thick with tension. Sarah's heart raced. "What is it, Mark?" she asked, her stomach tightening. Uncertainty loomed like dark clouds, threatening the sunshine of their shared excitement. "It's about the auction." He took a breath, clearly trying to organize his thoughts. "I overheard some folks talking near the bakery. They're worried about the event. They think it might not be safe to gather so many people. They mentioned some past incidents and how they can lead to chaos." The wind seemed to howl louder, joining the storm brewing in Sarah's mind. "What do you mean?" she pressed, struggling to wrap her head around the idea. "We get people together all the time for events." "I know, but rumors can spread fast. If this gets out, it could ruin everything we've worked for." Mark's voice softened as he looked at her. "I don't want to see you get hurt if it doesn't pan out." The warmth of the day evaporated at his words. The essence of community was fragile, built on relationships and trust, but now it felt like something was gnawing at that foundation. The excitement from their earlier brainstorm faded under a heavy blanket of worry. "I can't believe this," Sarah said, running a hand through her hair. "We can't let fear take over. This is for us, for everyone. We have to believe it'll work." Mark nodded slowly, his eyes clearly trapped somewhere between hope and doubt. "I do believe, Sarah. But we need to show people it'll be safe. Maybe we can have security for the day, something to ease their minds." A plan began to form in Sarah's head, but it felt like building a sandcastle in the face of an incoming tide. "You're right. But it's not just about safety," she shot back, her voice rising slightly. "It's about making this a place where people feel connected and supported, not isolated and scared. If we let fear dictate our actions, we've already lost." Okay, Mark replied, holding up his hands defensively. "Just take a breath. We can figure this out." Nodding slowly, Sarah inhaled deeply, letting the air fill her lungs. Mark had always been the rational one. Maybe she needed to draw on that while keeping the spark of hope alive. Maybe we can turn it into a community effort, she suggested, her voice gaining strength. If we address their concerns, get them involved in the planning, they'll see it's something worthwhile. Mark smiled faintly, his expression easing. I think that could work. Let us gather everyone again and talk strategies. As they walked back to their friends, a newfound resolve surged through her. They weren't just fighting for an event now. They were fighting to bring their community together. Later that week, they convened in Sarah's living room, the air humming with energy. Maps and plans sprawled around them as old friends rediscovered their connection. They tossed ideas back and forth, their laughter carrying the weight of fears. But even in the joy, whispers of doubt still lingered in Sarah's mind. Whenever she closed her eyes, the thought of what could go wrong threatened to close over her like a heavy fog. Her ambitions and fears entwined like ivy, making her question her ability to lead. Distracted, she caught Mark's eye and nodded, signaling it was time. Folks, he called out, drawing the group's attention. We're at a point where we can't just plan. We have to show our community we're serious about making this a safe and enjoyable event. Just then the door burst open. Before Sarah could greet the newcomer, a small dog bolted in, paws paddling across the floor in excited taps. Its warm eyes met hers, soaking up the moment like sunlight. Whoa! Someone laughed. Is that your? Yes. Sarah couldn't help but let out a laugh. This is Max. Before she could finish her sentence, Max was spinning in joyous circles, tail wagging like a flag. Suddenly, as if sensing the weight of their plans, Max halted and locked eyes with Sarah. In that moment, amidst the planning chaos, it dawned on her. Courage sometimes arrives in the simplest forms. But what would happen when their planning hit a snag they couldn't anticipate? She felt it lurking just out of sight. Would their growing efforts withstand what was coming? The meeting continued, buzzing with excitement, each friend contributing ideas and laughter while Max wandered around, soaking up the attention. His playful antics momentarily eased the tension in the room, creating a pocket of warmth that felt rare and precious. Yet, as Sarah glanced down at the innocent ball of fur, a flicker of unease tugged at her heartstrings. Was it right to let that joy blind them to the growing trepidation? As the night wore on, they hammered out details and strategies. People offered to volunteer for setup and security. They even brainstormed ways to communicate the event's safety measures to the wider community. Each suggestion ignited a spark in Sarah, pushing her doubts aside, if only temporarily. All right. So let us get our flyer ready, Mark said, nodding with determination. We'll hit every corner of town with it. If people see our commitment, they'll get on board. Let us do it, Sarah replied, the spark of enthusiasm warming her again. This is our chance to show that fear won't control us. We're stronger together, right? Right, echoed their friends, the weight of a shared mission settling over them like a comforting blanket. But the moment of camaraderie was short-lived, flickering slightly with an invisible shadow. Sarah's phone buzzed, pulling her focus back to reality. As she glanced at the screen, her heart sank. It was a message from an old friend, a name she hadn't seen in years. Reagan's words dripped with concern, mentioning protests that would coincide with their planned auction date. Hey, guys, Sarah hesitated to disrupt the joyous atmosphere, but she felt compelled to speak. I just got a message. There might be protests happening at the same time as our event. The room quieted, laughter fading into a thick silence. Mark's face paled, the weight of the revelation bearing down like a stone. What kind of protests? He asked, his voice low. Something about local policies, issues that involve our community's safety. I don't know the details yet. She swallowed hard, her voice shaky. But if people are already prepared to take to the streets, what are we going to do? One friend whispered, glancing furtively at the door as if expecting trouble to burst through it. I don't know yet, Sarah replied, looking around the room. The energy shifted from excitement to uncertainty, shadows creeping in once more. But we can't back down. We need to keep our focus on the auction and what we want to achieve. But what if people see our event as a distraction? Mark pondered aloud, anxiety creeping into his tone. What if they connect our plans to something negative? Sarah felt her stomach twist. Every word he spoke pulled at the string of fear she had worked so hard to unravel. What if we reach out to them? Invite the protesters to express their concerns at our event? A chance to listen. This is ambitious, another friend chimed in slowly. But also risky. What if it backfires? Or what if we find common ground? Sarah countered, the fiery determination rekindling in her chest. We can be a forum for dialogue. A chance to heal instead of divide. Mark's expression shifted, battling between caution and hope. It's worth considering. But we need to decide quickly before it spirals beyond our control. Max patted over and nudged Sarah's leg, grounding her in the chaos. She knelt and scratched behind his ears, breathing deeply. The warmth of his fur reminded her of the potential for love and unity, even in turbulent times. Okay, she said finally, rising back to her feet. Let us set a plan. If we can pave the way for conversation, maybe we can make something good come from this. We can turn fear into connection just like we planned for the auction. The group collectively exhaled, a blend of apprehension and resolve hanging thick in the air. They were on the brink of turning a potential disaster into an opportunity, but could they face what lay on the horizon? As they gathered around the maps once more, strategizing, Sarah looked at Mark. His eyes held hers, the weight of their shared venture heavy but hopeful. But deep down, Sarah knew that reality would test their resolve at every turn. Could they really build a bridge between fear and connection? What would happen when they stepped into the fray? The next morning dawned with an uneasy stillness. Sarah stared out at the sleepy street from her kitchen window, the soft light creeping through the blinds. It should have been a vibrant day filled with excitement over their upcoming auction. Instead, a knot twisted tight in her stomach. She could feel the weight of yesterday's revelations pressing down, clouding her thoughts. What would people say? Would they try to pin their event as a diversion? The questions whispered in her mind, and they wouldn't let her be. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the warmth seeping into her hands, and took a deep breath. Okay, you've got this, she muttered to herself, trying to shake off the doubt. She made her way to the living room, where Max was curled up, blissfully unaware of the world outside. His innocent gaze met hers, and for a moment she felt a flicker of peace. As Sarah sat down, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. It was Mark, a hint of nervous energy radiating from him. Hey, I thought we could go over the flyer. Make sure we're all set before we hit the streets. Yeah, definitely. But first she glanced back at her laptop, where Reagan's message still lingered in her mind. Have you thought more about the protests? I still think we should reach out to them. Mark frowned, rubbing his forehead. It worries me, though. What if we open the door to something we can't control? And what if the protesters see us as enemies? Or what if we unite our community? Sarah countered. She felt the fire inside her growing steadily. We can choose how we respond. Right now, fear is our biggest enemy. With a sigh, Mark nodded. All right, let us try. But we'll need to have a solid plan. It won't be easy. As they reviewed the flyer, Sarah's phone buzzed again. It was Reagan, and her heart raced as she opened the message. They're encouraging people to rally. They want to call attention to the issues disrupting our community. It could get crowded, so be careful. Does that mean we should consider postponing? Mark asked tentatively. Absolutely not, Sarah replied firmly. We can't let fear dictate our decisions. Mark leaned forward, a spark of energy igniting in his eyes. Then let us do it. But we need to be transparent. We should post on social media, reach out to local groups. The two of them threw ideas back and forth, invigorated by shared purpose. Soon they had crafted a message that extended an invitation not just to the auction but to dialogue, urging the community to come together. Maybe we could host an open forum during the event? Mark suggested, his voice excited. That could be the perfect way to bridge the gap between us and them. That is brilliant, Sarah exclaimed. It opens the door for them to express their thoughts. And if we can show we care about their concerns, we'll strengthen our community. As they finalized the flyer, a strange mix of hope and anxiety filled the air. They were inviting conversations that held the potential for both understanding and conflict. When they finished, Sarah took a deep breath. So we're doing this. We're putting it out there. Mark smiled, though his eyes reflected uncertainty. Yeah, we are. Whatever happens, at least we'll know we tried. Just then Max barked as if sensing the charged atmosphere. Sarah turned to see him prancing in circles, tail wagging madly. In that moment his pure joy struck a chord in her heart. "See," she said, laughing. "If a little puppy can keep his spirits up, so can we." With their plan set and flyer ready, they stepped outside, ready to rally their friends and neighbors. The sun felt warmer as they began their journey, but the road ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty. Could their efforts truly turn the tide of fear? As they walked through the street, flyers in hand, Sarah's heart raced. Every moment pushed them closer to the inevitable fray, questioning what lay ahead. What unforeseen challenges would they face? Would their community come together? Or would the divisions deepen even further? As the sun hung high in the sky, casting its golden warmth, Sarah felt both exhilaration and trepidation. Flyers fluttered in her hands, and the sweet sound of laughter danced through the streets. Today was the day they unveiled the Linda Project to their community, and the invitation to dialogue stirred something deep within her. Each step they took felt weighty, as if the hopes of everyone around her rested on this moment. The scent of barbecue smoke wafted through the air, mingling with the fresh-cut grass. As they approached the park, a buzz of excitement greeted them. People were already gathered, setting up tents and decorating for the auction. Sarah's heart raced, fueled by anticipation. "Ready?" Mark shot Sarah a grin, though she could see the flicker of nerves in his eyes. "Ready," she replied, taking a deep breath. The familiar warmth of courage ignited within her. As they set up the booth, they were met by neighbors and friends who all asked about the community forum they'd invited to the auction. Each inquiry added to her resolve. Sarah spoke passionately about the importance of voice and unity. She could feel the collective energy building. When the moment finally arrived for the main announcement, the crowd quieted, a sea of expectant faces shining with curiosity. Sarah stood at the front, glancing at the homemade banner that read "Together for Linda." Her heart surged as she recognized the strength of community gathered before her. "Thank you all for coming today," she called out, her voice reaching the corners of the park. "We're not just here to raise funds for my mom, but to start conversations that matter. Today we welcome everyone no matter where you stand. Let us talk about our concerns and our hopes together." As she spoke, Charlie, ever the lively spirit, trotted onto the stage. The crowd burst into laughter and applause, witnessing their adored pup's antics. In that moment, Sarah felt the tension melt away. Charlie's joy seemed to light up the gathering, reminding everyone of the love that connected them all. Soon, the day transformed into a celebration. The dog show had everyone cheering, families laughing, and before long, they even had locals sharing their own experiences and concerns in sessions set up across the park. There were no divisions, only connections blossoming, reminding them that strength lay in unity. At a few hours in, while the sun lazily began to dip toward the horizon, Sarah noticed a group gathering near the open forum. They were discussing the planned protests. As she made her way over, she overheard kind voices, a whirlwind of concern and compassion blending together. "Can we guarantee safety?" murmured one voice. "We're committed to making sure this is a space for everyone," Sarah assured, stepping into the circle. "We want to hear you and we want you to feel heard." A small gasp went through the crowd. It wasn't just skepticism they faced, it was a longing for conversation. Suddenly, a young woman stepped forward. "I'm worried about the protests causing chaos, but what if we share our views?" She dared to open her heart. The crowd murmured in agreement. Sarah reached for her heart in that moment, feeling an urgency swell within. "Maybe we can plan a community meeting," she proposed. "We can invite local leaders to hear all concerns and solutions together." Within moments, energy shifted from fear to hope, and that shift ignited something transformative. People began mingling, exchanging numbers, and making plans, everyone wanting to come together to create understanding. As twilight enveloped the park in a warm embrace, laughter mingled with friendly debates, old friends rekindled connections, and new friendships blossomed. Sarah stood amidst the joyful chaos, looking at Charlie as he played with the kids, and she couldn't help but smile. The shadows of fear and worry began to lift at that moment. She heard a soft, familiar voice, warm with gratitude. It was Linda, her mother, holding back tears. "You've built something beautiful, Sarah. I couldn't be prouder." Sarah hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of worry release. As the fair wrapped up, they collected an impressive amount towards Linda's medication. With care, they also gathered stories and ideas for their next meetings. Fear had been transformed into support, something vital forged in the crucible of shared experiences. As Sarah watched the community packing up their belongings, she realized this wasn't just about fighting for her mother anymore. They had stitched together a safety net for all families of the town, a commitment to build something real that would last far beyond today. In that heartwarming space, a spark ignited, a commitment to walk alongside each other. Every neighbor brought their dreams and fears to the table. Charlie barked and ran, weaving through legs, embodying the very spirit of their newfound strength, his tail wiggling like a flag of hope. As night fell, Sarah felt a wave of peace wash over her. They had faced their fears, and instead of crumbling, love had expanded to form a community standing together. Love transcended everything, telling them they were never alone. With renewed faith, Sarah whispered softly to herself, "We did it. This was just the beginning." Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together we can make a difference.